Hey everybody, yesterday we watched Roman J. Israel, Esquire, and we're going to review it. So Aiden, what is the plot of Roman J. Israel, Esquire?
Denzel Washington plays Roman J. Israel, who's he's a civil attorney, and he devotes most of his time to trying to help people who are less fortunate than him, mostly black. He does lawyer stuff. He's a defendant. He's a public defendant. And he's not used to being in the spotlight of the legal team. It was mostly his partner that would do that, but his partner gets incapacitated by a heart attack, so he's kind of forced into it. And when the firm he's a part of closes, he ends up joining a larger firm, and he loses himself there, and he becomes greedy, and he forgets where he came from, and he forgets why he originally wanted to be a lawyer. And
Are we spoiling the plot or not? Because if we're spoiling that, we should probably just hit the whammy bar there.
No, I think that's good.
Okay.
So, Connor, what did you think of Roman J. Israel, Esquire?
Well, this movie was written and directed by the guy who wrote Nightcrawler. I don't know if he directed it too, not positive. But it was a pretty good movie, honestly. I thought it would be really preachy, Black Lives Matter, and the movie trailers made it seem a lot like kind of a Black Lives Matter protest movie. And I was like,
Yeah.
This might go into the realm of super corny. But it was an interesting story. We had Roman, who was a lawyer. He had really strong beliefs in the civil rights and stuff, but over time, he kind of loses his devotion to his cause, basically says, fuck it, and then gains his cause back, makes some mistakes along the way, and then he ultimately has to pay the price for that. And he has a really strong legacy, and he just kind of, it's almost a story about somebody losing themselves and the path they've been trying to create, because sometimes the path you're trying to follow is a harder path, but ultimately he regains his faith in the cause. And I just thought it was a really good and interesting movie. Obviously there were a lot of parts that got kind of boring, which I thought Nightcrawler was interesting start to finish, really fun movie. That movie was...
Nightcrawler had really tight pacing. This movie was kind of meandering.
Yeah, this movie meandered a little more. Although, it didn't bother me too much. I wouldn't say it's like a movie ruiner or anything. There were definitely parts that were less exciting where Nightcrawler was like, even though it was this deep, thoughtful movie, obviously it wasn't like an action movie like the Avengers where it's just action scene, action scene, action scene. There were intense scenes, there were action scenes, there were emotional scenes, and there were scenes that put you in the mind of this unusual character. I thought there were similar things in a lot of scenes to this, although, like Aiden said, it's a little more meandering where there's points where it's kind of slow, it gets kind of dull at certain points, but for the most part I would say that it was a good, fun movie with a good story to tell. It was a civil rights lawyer movie, which would have made it really easy to just make this guy Martin Luther King Jr. and be like, oh, blah blah blah, whatever, I love black people, which he did. But I mean, they could have made it really preachy, but instead they didn't, which made it more accessible to all audiences. It wasn't, it could have also easily just been like, I hate the white men. And obviously, like, our semi-villain of the movie, white lawyer dude, you could kind of put in that role, but they didn't really make him feel like he was like some racist white guy. He almost had an arc. He had a similar arc to Roman in the movie, which we're not going to spoil the movie, so I won't say it. But he had a similar arc to Roman in the movie, and it made it quite interesting because, even though his arc was kind of different, there were definitely parallels, and it was interesting seeing that character find himself. There were no real villains in this movie. obviously there was a major kind of a plot point at the end, which I won't spoil, which kind of sets up a villain. But I mean, in the way of antagonists, for the most part, there really isn't one. It's just a story about Roman and this other character finding themselves, and they could have easily Joyner Lucas did, where they demonize white people, demonize this white person, but they didn't go that route. Instead, they made him an interesting character that also had his own arc, and you even see that reflected with Maya, his friend, activist girl. And I just thought it was an interesting movie. Was it as interesting as Nightcrawler? Was it as good as Nightcrawler? Definitely not. But it was a worthy, fun movie. And especially with the action movies that have come earlier, and with Star Wars coming up, it's kind of a nice little movie to kind of break the monotony of $300 million action movies. So Aiden, what do you think of this movie?
It was decent. It's pretty much a movie about Roman J. Israel and the stuff he goes through. And you see him first digress from being hopeful and optimistic to being cynical and greedy, and then even though he's kind of fallen out of his own path, other people are so inspired by him that they start going on his path. So even when things are down for him as a character, I mean, things are up for him in ways, but emotionally he's down. He's still inspiring people to do the right thing, and I liked that a lot. Really well shot, really well acted. The entire movie is pretty good. It's slow paced. It's not going to be for everyone, but I think it's interesting. I mean, I don't want to ruin it. I think it's something that is kind of hard to describe. It's kind of just like you see the world through Roman's eyes, and you learn about Roman, and but overall, it's fairly good. So, Connor, would you recommend Roman J. Israel Esquire?
Yeah, I would recommend it. I thought it was a pretty good drama movie. Keep in mind, it is not necessarily balls to the walls action. I know we probably have a lot of our viewers might just like kind of action type movies, because a lot of the shit we cover is like Star Wars, Avengers, big pop culture movies. But if you don't mind a slower, introspective movie, and even for, this movie doesn't push the fact that Roman's an autismo to the point where it's awkward and preachy, and it doesn't push the fact that he is a civil rights lawyer to the point where it's cringy and awkward. Like, it's good. So I'd recommend it, yeah, but keep that in mind that a lot of people who want really fast, high-paced movies are probably not going to enjoy this movie. So, yeah, to most people, most movie goers who want a deep, introspective movie, I would recommend it, yes. Aiden, would you recommend this movie?
Yeah, I would. Not too cape shit fans, but people who can watch a movie that doesn't have an explosion in it are gonna enjoy this movie, and I think I would recommend it. So
cool. Trying to shut up.